The holiday season is here once again, and though it took a while to get done, it's time to talk about another retrospective that's not just interesting, but showed me a brand new perspective on what makes a character so inspiring, yet mysterious. So here's a retrospective of not just the series or the character knights, but two other games that are not just spiritual successors, but were made by former members of the Knights team. All the footage used are actually from moments I was actually streaming when playing these games. You will notice some weird aspect ratio issues, especially with the first game we'll be talking about, because PC gaming is not really my specialty, unfortunately. With that all out of the way, let's talk about the star of the show of this retrospective, Knights, here on Star Jettison. Before we begin, special shout out to our first channel member, Exy the Stinker. If you want to get a special shout out or your name credited in each video, you can either become a YouTube channel member, a Twitch subscriber, or even send a donation to my coffee. It's not mandatory or necessary, but it does help with the production of making content on this channel, and your support means so much to me. And now, back to the video. Before we actually talk about the game, you should probably learn about Knight's development. Most fans of a specific gaming franchise will point the finger at who was the person in charge of creating the character and or ruining that said character's franchise. But game design is a group effort, so I think it's more than just one person who made everything work out, unless you're a solo indie developer. But the person who was the game's director was Naoto Oshima, and Yuji Naka was the producer. Knights was originally made as a new IP made by Sonic Team to advertise the Sega Saturn, but after the cancellation of Sonic Extreme, which left the Saturn as the only Sega console to not have a brand new Sonic game, Knights ironically enough became the mascot of the console, besides the legend himself, Segata Sanshiro. Though the game is called Knights into Dreams, the game is actually about Elliot and Clarice. They both suffer from nightmares dealing with their own personal doubts and fears, ending up in the land of dreams, Knightopia. Knights is being held captive in each level, so the kids rescue him and become one with him, in order to battle the nightmares made by Wise Man. How? By flying around the dream world collecting small colorful spheres called Idia, and defeating the level boss within the time limit. Playing the game normally, by going to the beginning and the end, I usually end up with a rank C or D. I later realized I shouldn't be playing this how I normally play modern platformers. I should be playing Knights into Dreams like an arcade game, meaning that I would actually have to go around the entire level collecting more and more points and combos like crazy before I ran out of time. And lo and behold, I was starting to get more than C ranks. I was getting Bs and even As throughout the entire game, which is a good thing because I do need to get a C rank or higher on every level in the game in order to get the true ending, considering there are 7 levels in the game, because the last 2 levels are literally just the one and the same, both being the final boss, just in the different perspective of the kid. It's still mandatory to beat both stories in order to get the true ending. Playing this version of Knights into Dreams feels very rewarding, especially with all the content you get for playing, including concept art, video cutscenes, a music setting, and the ability to play the game with the original Sega Saturn graphics. And honestly, I believe most video game remakes should also include this. But the most iconic award is another exclusive game that was sold separately in Japan and on the Sega Saturn, which is called Christmas Nights. And kind of the reason why I made this a Christmas video to begin with. Not to mention the idea of flying in your dreams sounds so whimsical and magical, as well as the character of Knights themselves being this fantastical, mystical jester of dreams, felt very festive in my honest opinion. Though I should let you know the version I'm playing was the Steam version, which was an enhanced remake exclusive to the PS2 in Japan. And since this is part of said remaster edition, it doesn't have all the Christmas Nights exclusive content that was found in the Sega Saturn version. From playing as Riala, the evil variant of Knights, additional bonus specs, and even playing as Sonic the Hedgehog. But the level design having a whole Christmas vibe and the fact that it's playing Jingle Bells definitely makes it feel like the most festive game to play this time of the year. Whether it's the original version or the remake, Knights into Dreams was a short great time with tons of replayability that's worth trying out. Unfortunately, if you want to play the game now, you'll have to either find a physical copy of the original Knights into Dreams and Christmas Nights on the Sega Saturn, or go to your local Emu on a Ladder's video game emporium to try find either version of the game, as the Steam version I'm playing was delisted back in 2024, and on my birthday no less. But you can still download on the PS3 and the Xbox 360. But you better hurry before those two go defunct, because the last thing I want from this Sega Saturn classic is for it to become a forgotten dream. But there is another version we should probably talk about next. Released in the worst year for Sega on the Nintendo Wii, it's NiGHTS Journey of Dreams, a brand new retelling of the original NiGHTS Into Dreams, but now with more spectacle. Journey of Dreams is basically a remake of Into Dreams, with so many noteworthy changes such as the kid characters, their hardships before going to Nightopia, new bosses recreated or reimagined from the original, and dialogue for better and for worse. But before I talk about that, I should talk about the multiple control schemes at the game you're allowed to play on. Considering this is a launch title for the Wii, playing with the Wiimote and Nunchuck is functionally there, but honestly I do not recommend it, especially if you're trying to get the true ending, as it definitely does feel like early Wii motion controls, and I don't mean that in a good way. So I highly recommend using a classic controller or the GameCube controller unless you're playing on a Wii U. Anyways, back to the actual game itself. Just like in the original NiGHTS Into Dreams, you choose between Will or Helen as you enter the world of dreams, depending on the characters. But what I find interesting about this element of their stories is that both their segments are kind of happening at the same time, and even shows that the hub world are not just the same, but depending on whether you play as Will or Helen, you actually see some broken doors on one side of the area, which actually belongs to the other kid, hinting towards that you should probably play as the other one to unlock the full story, and of course, getting all C ranks or higher to actually get the true ending of the game. Will and Helen's levels are fairly different from one another, as the original game had you going through different segments, which made it fairly shorter. Now each world is broken down into 5 segments, with the first level being a classic run through the level, going around the fantasy realm within the time limit, and then facing the boss of the dream realm. The rest of the levels are a random bunch of mini-games, whether it's rescuing little creatures, defeating enemies, a terrible music minigame, knights turning into this abomination, and an enhanced version of the boss fight of the realm in order to beat the world. Though the original game had you collecting all the Idias in each level, Idias are now a main collectible for each realm, though the final Idia is hidden behind the original true ending goal. When it comes to level design, I think Will has the better level structure, as some of Helen's games I generally don't like. Not to mention, the witch boss is one of the worst bosses in the series, as it's basically a pinball minigame where you have to basically throw cats down a hole, but they don't want to go in there. It's definitely one of those moments where the motion controls would have been against you the entire time and made a lot of people rage quit without ever wanting to try to get the true ending of the story. Which I should talk about, as there is a lot of dialogue between the kids, knights, and a new character made for the game, Owl, who teaches you how to play the game and goes into detail of the lore of Knight's character, which, truth be told, I didn't even know was a Nightmarian until I played Journey of Dreams. Into Dreams probably explained this in the manual to better understand the game's story due to limited cartridge space, but with Knights now being on modern hardware at the time, they could have added story segments to reintroduce Knights to a new audience. Sadly, Journey of Dreams probably wasn't a massive seller, as it was going through a lot of issues during the year of 2006, and Knights was probably seen as another mascot shovelware title to some. I mean, the game isn't as good as the original in my honest opinion, but I don't think it was bad. The copy I owned was brand new still, in case, and I'm really glad I finally got to play this game. Luckily, Knight's story doesn't end here, as they would have gotten many other appearances in other Sega games, with their most recent appearance being in Sonic Racing Crossworlds. Now, this is usually where I end our retrospective of Knights as a character and give my opinions on why they should make a new game in the series or even a Collection of Dreams pack. But this video is not just about Knights, but also the games that were inspired by Knights. And luckily, I found 2 games that were basically spiritual successors to Knights, as they were developed by former members of Sonic Team, for better and for worse. So let's talk about the next game in our retrospective. After leaving Sega due to reasons that would lead to the creation of Sonic 06, Yuji Naka would create his own game studio, Probe. They mostly made games I honestly have never heard of, and some I found very surprising on their resume, including a few Street Pass games, a Digimon Power Stone clone, which by the way will be in part 3, and Ivy the Kiwi, which is a game I've heard of and I kinda liked because I played the demo of it. But there was one game that was directly inspired by both Knights and Sonic the Hedgehog in both gameplay and style. The first of 2 titles that had many inspirations towards Knights, and is probably the only title in this video most people have never even heard of: Rodea The Sky Solider. 1,000 years ago, Emperor Gyardo of the Naga Empire planned an invasion to take over the kingdom of Garuda. His plans were foiled by his daughter, Princess Cecilia, after stealing an item called the Key of Time, giving half of the key to her loyal guard, a machine with a heart she names Rodea. Though he escaped, it came at the cost of his arm, his memories, and the life of the young princess. Rodea then wakes up 1,000 years into the future thanks to Ion, a young mechanic from Garuda. But call it fate, the Naga Empire also returns, looking for the rogue Sky Soldier and the missing part of the Key of Time. With Ion's help, Rodea goes on a journey to defeat the Naga Empire, protect Garuda, and reclaim his lost memories in a surprisingly entertaining adventure. There are different versions of this game, including a 3DS port I didn't know of when making this video, but the one I played from beginning to end was the original version on the Nintendo Wii, and I'll explain why in a bit. As for why Rodea is inspired by both NiGHTS and Sonic, you have to look at Rodea's gameplay, as the game's movement is handled by combining Sonic's homing attack and NiGHTS' flight in a 3D area. When you point the reticle at any spot by either pressing B twice or pressing B, then shaking the Wiimote in a specific direction, Rodea will fly towards that direction, and you can change the direction by locking on and soaring to the next spot. It feels odd at first, but over time, you get a handle of the gameplay and realize it's actually very intuitive, if not flawed at times. Though you shouldn't fly into enemies without using your homing attack, which is great for attacking and boosting Rodea's speed during flight. But Rodea can't take many hits, as he has 3 forms: his normal form, his weak form, that punishes you hard when you get hit by making you lose airtime, speed, and even your attack, and his powered up form when you collect Glider to heal yourself, which makes the game a cakewalk if you can dodge attacks, as improves Rodea's attack, speed, and getting hit reverts you back to your normal form. There are also level specific items you can obtain, like dash shoes, a scouter that lets you lock onto multiple foes, and a gun. And yeah, there's a lot of really great stuff from what I've played on the Wii version. But so far, I've only talked about the Wii version of the game. What about the Wii U version? Oh. Yeah, the Wii U version isn't really good, and I didn't really bother with the 3DS version because it's mostly to the fact that Rodea was originally made for the Wii when the game's development began in 2010. By the time the game was nearly done in 2011, the game's publisher, Kadokawa Games, wanted the game to release on new hardware at the time, the 3DS and the upcoming Wii U. And after 4 years of basically porting Wii assets onto modern hardware, the game got mediocre scores for both versions. But what about the Wii version score? It's honestly the best version of the game, and honestly, it might be like one of those hidden gems that really should have stayed a Wii exclusive title, mostly due to the fact that the only way to actually play the Wii version is to buy the Wii U version, comes with both discs, and unfortunately, most reviewers only looked at the inferior version, leaving Rodea this negative reputation, not to mention how much they alter the game's controls and remove abilities that were in Rodea's repertoire by hiding them away in a shop that's exclusive to the inferior version, even limiting how long Rodea can stay in the air. And those level specific items are now permanent tools you can switch between once you obtain them, but they too need item specific tools for upgrades. Though I will admit, I do like that the medals let you unlock extra content in the game, but that doesn't excuse the game's quality and how much the game had to suffer through many issues of porting the title. If you really want to enjoy Rodea the Sky Soldier the best way possible, a review I saw for the game says it all. Buy Rodea the Sky Soldier for Wii U, toss the Wii U disc into a nearby sewage canal, pop the Wii disc into this machine and let her spin. And of course, don't bother with a 3DS version. Even though Rodea's story is now over, it's time to talk about the last of our spiritual successors towards NiGHTS. Does it get better? Unfortunately, no. As much as I do enjoy Rodea through its story, gameplay, and world, it's all downhill from here.
When in count, we need sin dodor or cloud.
Disappointed!
What if I told you Square Enix developed a 3D platformer with character designing legends who helped make both Sonic and NiGHTS into Dreams? And what if I told you it was one of the most imaginative and stunning looking titles to release in 2021? Unfortunately, what we got instead was Balan Wonderworld. I literally don't judge a book by its cover. Don't worry, I'll get to that. But this game gave fans high hopes only for them to be shattered completely when the demo of the game was released. I would know because I played that demo, and after playing it, immediately canceled my pre-order for the Switch version. And in all honesty, you've probably heard of everything that just doesn't work with this game. And heck, I could even do an entire video on how you could have even fixed and made a better version of Balan Wonderworld, but only if you're interested in one. There are tons of videos explaining how bad the game is, but here's an extensive list of why I don't like this game personally. That being everything from the game having a simple control scheme that becomes extremely annoying, especially when it comes to navigating game menus, the story's plot being non-existent unless you bought a $10 digital book, the game not telling you how certain mechanics and gameplay works, like standing on checkpoints allowing you to change costumes whenever. Most costumes have similar mechanics or are borderline useless. Some costumes make you lose the ability to jump in a platformer. If you lose specific costumes, you have to go back to a certain world to re-obtain them. You need keys to unlock costumes, and both keys and costumes taking forever to respawn. The Isle of Tims being a massive waste of time. The game constantly wasting 10 hours of my time. Characters throughout the world keep disappearing and reappearing. The major antagonist Lance is hardly even in this game. World progression is hidden behind backtracking for specific Balan trophies, most of which are Balan bouts, which are the absolute worst. And worst of all, the game is so boring. Some people say the game gets better over time, but if the game doesn't pique my interest from beginning to end, or that has to take until the post-game to actually be fun, but I'm sorry, I think that's just being either delusional or forcibly trying to find any fault in this game whatsoever. And I get why. Yuji Naka probably wanted to make a game similar to NiGHTS in every way, from trying to let the players get a vague idea of the story and try to let them figure out themselves the deeper lore to Balan, like you're reading an old game manual to those who enjoy those nostalgic times. But what made NiGHTS work that way was because of the limited hardware not allowing them to fit everything, but showed you a vague idea of how it's going on, so the visuals and the gameplay wouldn't suffer or be scrapped entirely. Even Journeys of Dreams understood this, hence why the game had dialogue to expand the story. Balan tries to recapture the magic in the worst way possible, and from what I've heard, the development of the game wasn't going very well. And in my opinion, Arzest wasn't the best studio to handle this big project. But what would you expect from a studio known for making the most mediocre of games? It's a shame because I really like the designs of the characters and creatures of Wonderworld, and I think they should make more appearances in other Square Enix games. Heck, they even work great in Kingdom Hearts. But alas, this was Yuji Naka and Square Enix's only attempt to ever make a 3D platformer. Yuji Naka would later be imprisoned for insider trading, and Square Enix would make plenty of remakes and terrible business choices. In the end, Balan Wonderworld was a total blunderworld. And with that, we are now officially done with NiGHTS Retrospective and its 2 official spiritual successors. Though there are probably tons of indie games with NiGHTS inspiration, let me know about them in the comments if you actually know if any I missed, because I'd love to do a part 2 on NiGHTS Spiritual Successors. And after reaching the many highs and lows of NiGHTS' legacy, I have a newfound respect towards NiGHTS as a character and as a game series. Not just the character, but what the games and even the spiritual successors try to express. I still say the original is definitely the best version of the game, and Journey of Dreams is no slouch when it comes to quality. Rodea The Sky Solider will have its dedicated fans, and unfortunately Balan Wonderworld will be a forgotten mess. But one of my biggest surprises when looking through all these games is that a lot of them have a similar common goal and theme on their story, characters, and what they represent. And of course, you definitely see it in NiGHTS. NiGHTS represents hopes and dreams. NiGHTS is that part of you that doesn't want to give up and pushes you towards your goals, even when you're too afraid to take that chance. They don't give up on you, you shouldn't give up on yourself. NiGHTS teaches you that if you want your dreams to take flight, you sometimes need a helping hand to show you the way, just like how NiGHTS, Rodea, and even Balan try to do. It might sound a little too philosophical, but I feel like that's kind of how I see NiGHTS. And if NiGHTS were to ever return to the limelight or even get another game in the series, obviously a collection of dreams would be a must-have, but I think NiGHTS would actually be introduced to other kids who are going through hardships. NiGHTS would help them in their own unique way. If that ever happens, it would be a dream delight. That's all I have for now, but know this isn't the end, but a new beginning, as we wake up from this dream into a new dawn. Until then, this is AngelStar from Star Jettison, wishing you a happy holiday, and to never stop dreaming.
Keep the dream of the one you're hoping for. Love can come through an open door. Just be strong.